Karli here. Welcome to today's episode of This is Friendship. Today I have with me a young entrepreneur who happens to be a former coworker of mine. I was excited to see her on Instagram starting her own business, and I couldn't wait to talk to her about it. We're going to move into our episode with Margaret Van Winkle. Hi, Margaret. How
Hello.
are you?
Hi. Good. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks for fitting me into your very busy schedule
Of
in
course.
between preschool drop-offs and baby naps and all of that. So
Oh, yeah.
we may hear a little bit of baby in the background. Who knows? And that's perfectly fine because that's what we do around here. It's real life.
Perfect.
Well, why don't you tell us about you? Tell us your story.
Well, I have two kiddos, one of them 3.5. His name is Cameron, and an almost 7-month old. Her name is Colette. So that takes up the bulk of my time. I live in Omaha, Nebraska, and I've lived here my whole life. Two brothers, and they have their own families. One of them is in South Carolina now, so that's fun. We get to go, to the East Coast and visit them every once in a while. And other than that, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I've been a stay-at-home mom for 3 years now, and that was probably the biggest life change outside of actually having kids. That was my biggest life change I've ever gone through in the best way. And I also have this little hobby job. It is not by any means this like big cookie empire. It's my little hobby job and I like it that way, but it's called Cottage House Cookies. And that's been a lot of fun. I've been doing that for just about 1.5 years. So that's been a welcome change as well.
I have to say to our listeners, get onto her Instagram and look because you look like a cookie empire to me.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, that's what Instagram is all about.
Yeah.
But it's lovely to see the events that you make cookies for and how special they look. And I can only imagine how yummy they taste. I haven't been lucky enough to taste one yet. But
It's just funny. Every once in a while, I'll go back and look at my first posts from when I decided, I'm like, oh, I'll just throw this up on Instagram, see if anyone cares. And I go back and look at those pictures and I almost want to take them down, but I can't do it because it reminds me of where I started, and the more you do it, the better you get. And that's kind of how I'm rolling these days with motherhood and with cookies.
that is a good message, though, because I do the same thing. I go back and what was I thinking? And
Yeah.
it's true. You want to take it down, but then you don't want to be so curated that
Yeah.
that authenticity is missing.
Yeah.
And those posts where you're like, oh gosh, what was I doing? You figure in a year, you're going to look back on the ones you're doing today and probably
For
think the
sure.
same thing
Yep.
because it's just an evolution, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You've mentioned obviously Cottage House Cookies. Tell us how that all started. You said it was one of the biggest life changes.
Yes. So there's a short answer and a long answer. My short answer is 1.5 years ago, February 2020. I'm sitting at home and the world's getting a little crazy. So we've kind of pulled back from the activities we were doing and going to the library as often as we did. And I was just needing something outside of attending to a then 2-year-old's needs all day. And so it was around Valentine's Day. And I said to Cameron, why don't we make some Valentine's Day cookies and we can just drop them off on friends and family's doorsteps and it'll be a good activity for the day. So we did that. Then Easter came around and I decided to do the same thing because I had so much fun with it. And actually, when I was doing them at Valentine's Day, I kind of got selfish about the whole thing because it's fun for him, but it was really fun for me. And I gave him, 4 cookies to decorate. And I'm like, oh, I'll take the other ones. So I did it again at Easter and did the same thing. And I had a couple friends say, hey, we've got a small birthday coming up. It's just going to be our immediate family. Can you make some cookies and I will pay for them? And that was weird to me. I'm like, you do not have to pay. I will just make them. But I got to thinking, what's stopping me from just putting these on Instagram? And if nobody cares, nobody cares. It was fun for me, but maybe some people will want to order and it could become something a lot bigger. So that's how it evolved. It evolved out of boredom and needing some sort of creative outlet at a time that we weren't going anywhere or doing anything. So that's my short version. The long version is I feel like looking back now, a lot of things in my life have been stair steps to what I'm doing now. So I think back to 2017. I was in a really unfulfilling job and pregnant and trying to navigate what my maternity leave was going to look like. It was a very small business, so paid maternity leave was out of the question. And really, how long I was even going to get off was a mystery. My boss wasn't super supportive of family life. So there was just a lot of signs that were pointing me to leaving that job, and it just took certain things happening. So that's in 2017. Then Cameron is born. I got, I think, 8 weeks of unpaid maternity leave. And that was really scary leading up to that because me and my husband were pretty much equal earners and we needed both of our paychecks. So that took a lot of preparation to say, okay, I'm not going to get paid for 8 weeks. How are we going to pay the hospital bills? How are we going to pay our mortgage? How are we going to pay for all of these things? So I get through that maternity leave and we were just fine. We were able to adjust. And that started to get some confidence building on, do I really need to stay in this terrible job that I hate showing up for? Or is there some flexibility to figure out something different I would like to do? So growing up, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. So I always had that in the back of my mind. I have these memories of my childhood being very relaxed and being at home with my mom and baking. She was the bread lady. So she made bread. That was her thing. And people would buy it from her. So I just had these foundational memories that were just instilled in my brain. So I got through that maternity leave. I go back to work. There's a lot of travel involved, a lot of time away from Cameron, which was super hard. And there was one trip in particular where I come home after a super long traveling day, and the next day I end up in the ER with mastitis. So it's like, oh my gosh, now this is affecting my health on a certain level, and I'm just not balancing it well. Layered on top of that, I had some undiagnosed postpartum depression that I got help for when Cameron was 6 months old. That was in September, and I ended up leaving my job in October. It had just become too much. And my husband is like, something's got to give. You're not happy. You're suffering on this certain level that nothing is going to fix except leaving this job. So that's what I did. And I had no backup. I just quit. The whole time I'm thinking back to that 8 weeks of maternity leave, I'm like, we were able to adjust. All we have to do is adjust. And luckily, we had created a lifestyle and Scott's job had shifted a bit and we were able to make it work. So let's see, that's in 2018. So I'm doing the stay-at-home mom thing. That's great. I'm loving it. And then 2020 comes around and I had gotten to a point, Cameron's 2 years old and he's napping great. And I just was looking for something for the afternoons during his 2-hour nap. What's something I can do that's a creative outlet that would be fun for me to put out into the world and see what happens. So that's my long version of how I started this cookie shop.
I love it. You've covered so many things that any working woman can relate to, especially when she's young and starting a family. And that balance, it took guts to do what you did for sure.
It's a big shift going from only taking care of yourself to taking care of another person and trying to navigate all of that and still take care of yourself and your needs, from showering and eating to also filling up your cup in terms of what inspires you and what you have for just yourself, whether it's, going to get a manicure or whatever the case may be. For me, it was a creative, something to do with my hands that I could see the end product and feel proud of it.
You bring up a good point there in knowing what it is that you need to do that makes you feel rejuvenated. Mm-hmm. That kind of self-care. It doesn't have to be necessarily the physical thing of the spa or the massage, although those things are awesome and definitely are part of self-care.
Yes.
It's just as important to pay attention to those other facets of your life that haven't been tended in some time. I feel that especially career-driven women, it's a really big adjustment when you have these goals and these aspirations and you want to achieve and succeed in that part of life. And then you've got this little baby and you're like, oh gosh, none of that really matters to me anymore. You still have some of those tingles in you
Yes.
to say, I want to do things.
Yes. And as I was searching for what this thing was that was going to be an outlet for me, the time at home and with my family and my kids was always at the forefront. So it was, what can I do that doesn't take me away from my home life during the day? And this just fit. It was a light bulb moment. All of these things from 2017 to 2020, it all felt like, divine intervention or luck or whatever you want to call it. It was just a sequence of events that you don't realize all go together until you're removed from it.
Until you're a little bit past it, and then you start looking back. That is something for our listeners too. If you're listening to Margaret's story and things are driving with some of the things you're feeling, if you're not really opening yourself up and looking around you, there probably are things happening that are clues to you. You just have to be open to seeing them and paying attention.
That's one thing my mom said when I was trying to figure out, am I going to quit my job? She said to me, you don't even know what opportunities are out there until you make yourself available. And that was another push. As long as I was consuming my time with this job and with travel, I was never going to be available for anything else. So once you make the decision, it is true. Other things just fall into your lap that you're able to say yes to.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think that's a pretty common thread that ties a lot of entrepreneurial journeys together.
Yep.
I'm guessing you have a dog.
Did you hear him shake? We have a little wiener dog. I know that's going to shock you.
I've seen pictures. Oh my gosh. We have to leave this in the episode. So Margaret, when I first met you, you're in college, and then fresh out of college, we worked together. You were fresh out of college. I was far beyond that. But she always obsessed with dachshunds, always obsessed with dachshunds. So I think I saw a picture pop up on your Instagram, and I was, I'm so not surprised. He's the perfect fit for you.
We got him at the Humane Society. He's our little puppy that was on sale. He's got a few quirks.
Tell us the biggest thrills of what you do and the biggest challenges of what you do.
The biggest thrill is that anybody orders from me. Honestly, because I don't advertise, I don't put out any sort of sponsorships on social media, I don't put out anything. So it's strictly all word of mouth. The biggest thrill is that anyone sends me a message and thinks that they're worth purchasing. It's also really fun for me when someone has a super unique theme or idea and asks me to bring it to life. That is really fun. So I love that. The biggest challenge is time management. So it's taken me a while to figure out how much I can take on and complete without feeling stressed out, because I never started this to pay any bills or to feel any sort of stress. So I try to make sure that I put a cap on how many cookies I can make in a week and to stick to it. And that's not to say that I don't take big orders here and there, but it takes a lot more planning and occasionally some help from my parents during the day with the kids. But that would be the biggest challenge, is just making sure I'm not overcommitting myself, because I want to say yes to every single person that messages me, and I just can't.
You're sticking to your number one priority.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's another challenge for people who are starting a business, is that you do want to say yes to everybody, and you really do have to remember why you're doing what you're doing, whether it's boundaries like you're setting as far as your time that you're able to commit, or maybe it's a client who's not the right fit for you. You want to say yes to them, and really you should be saying no because it's not the right fit. That's a lesson that takes a little bit of learning sometimes.
And I've learned it twice now, because I had a different comfort level with one kid than two kids. So I've made some adjustments this year.
So you have a 7-month-old now, right?
Yes, she will be 7 months soon, in the next probably 10 days. I don't know, what day is it?
my personal experience, moving from 1 to 2 was more challenging than 2 to 3. Also, I wasn't able to be a stay-at-home mom. Kudos to all the stay-at-home moms out there, because what you do is not easy.
It's really entertaining on the weekends to watch how ready to go back to work Scott is.
It definitely takes a special skill set, and I don't know that it gets fully appreciated by anyone other than other stay-at-home moms. As a mom who worked through her kid's entire childhood, I did feel like some days I was glad to be able to drop them off at whatever my daycare situation was at the time.
It's such a catch-22 though, because I've experienced it both ways, and it was so hard to work and take your child to childcare. It is so hard. You feel so torn. So whatever which way it goes.
Yeah, it was very hard when they were small.
Mm-hmm.
When they couldn't talk and communicate with me yet, I was a nervous wreck for sure.
When something goes wrong and you have to figure out within your day, okay, I have to go pick up a child. How do I adjust my work day to make this happen? That is not easy.
And it sounds like you weren't in an environment that was very supportive. Everybody has their own journey, and it's finding where it fits. But I do have a big appreciation for stay-at-home moms, because you have a patience level that I know I didn't have.
Well, I had zero patience at the beginning of this, and now it's like, woof, everything just rolls off. It's like, do I really care about this? Probably not.
All the controlling tendencies. Bye-bye.
Yesterday, we went out to run a few errands. Cameron wore one camo grass-stained shoe and one brown loafer that he wears to church. And I'm like, wow, I really just do not care what you have on your feet. Just put some shoes on. Let's go. I'm sure people in the store were like, wow, that's a fashion choice. All right.
You're right. Picking the things that matter most, that is not one of them.
Yeah.
You mentioned it a little bit, but tell us how you balance your family life and your business.
So I keep a paper calendar, and depending on how busy I am, it's either a weekly calendar or a monthly calendar. So going into October, November, December, it's definitely a monthly calendar. So I can see a big picture of what's this week, what's next week, what's the week after. I also, outside of a couple special circumstances, I don't do anything cookie related outside of responding to maybe an Instagram message or a Facebook message. I don't do anything until the kids are in bed, because I can't stretch my brain in that many different directions during the day. So once the kids are in bed, I'm pretty much fully dedicated to cookies until about 10:30, if that's what the day requires. So I would say those are the two biggest things, is having a paper schedule and knowing how much time things take and being able to complete it in the 2.5, 3 hours I have each night that I dedicate to the work part of it. I've got it pretty much down to a science. I know how long every single step takes. So it's become a lot less overwhelming as time has gone on. I know that if I have 4 dozen cookies, I can complete them in this amount of time, and it doesn't stress me out. So that's pretty much the way I handle it.
Our listeners don't know what we did, but we worked together in an office, a retailer, and Margaret worked with a lot of numbers and planning. I can hear all of those skills coming across in your description of what you just said.
It's such a left brain, right brain. I can go so hard on the analytics and know how much time things take. And then I can go so far the other direction too. It is bizarre. That's kind of what we needed as buyers, though. You had to do both jobs. So in a lot of ways, that's prepared me for this.
Right. I love it, because you're looking at it with that business brain that's second nature to you just from your professional experience. And then you've got this creative wow on the other side.
Yeah.
Did you always bake? Were you always a cookie maker and decorator?
Yes, I have always loved being in the kitchen, and I like cooking enough. I really like baking because it's just a lot more of a laid back feel. I say all the time, I wish we only had to eat dinner twice a week, because I just absolutely hate making dinner. But I will make time to make a batch of cookies or to make cupcakes or brownies or whatever it is, because it's just more relaxing. So I've always enjoyed being in the kitchen, just in different capacities. And growing up, my mom was always in the kitchen. So it's a little bit nostalgic for me too.
Yeah.
It just gives me feel goods.
I bet she loves what you're doing.
I think so. Yeah. She buys them sometimes, so that's good. I try to give her a friends and family discount, and usually she pays.
Oh my gosh, that's great. I bet she's so proud of you. If you haven't told her, you should definitely tell her how much inspiration your childhood gave you.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for other moms who want to start a side gig and be able to do something that is entrepreneurial, but still be able to balance with their family life? What advice do you have?
Do something you are passionate about that you enjoy, and then just do it, because there's never going to be a right time. You're never going to have more time. You just have to put it out there and see where it goes. And that's kind of the mindset I had getting started. Just put it out there. And if I never get a message, then it was no loss for me. It was a fun little project and it failed. But you just have to do it because there's never a right time.
I think your approach was really smart too. You didn't set out with the intention to pay your mortgage or anything like that. It was really just a fun thing, your passion that you thought was fun. How did the name come about?
I have a very creative brother, very creative. He's an architect, and he is like, is your right side of your brain the creative side? Whatever side's the creative side, I'm pretty sure that's all he has. I shouldn't say that. I'm sure he has a little piece of the other side, but he's super creative and he's amazing at what he does. But when I started deciding to go down this path, I was definitely bouncing ideas off of him and sending him pictures that I wanted to put on social media. And so we bounced some ideas back and forth. I always had cottage in my mind because at our previous house that we lived in, it was just this little Cape Cod style house. It was just tiny. And I always called it the cottage just because I thought it was cute. I named our Wi-Fi the cottage. Like, I don't know, it was so dumb. But so I always had cottage, and then Cottage House Cookies just kind of flowed. So that's where we landed. But it was kind of just bouncing ideas off of him. Whenever I need some sort of creative push, I feel like I reach out to him the most.
You're the little sister, right?
Yep.
Now, is this the brother that introduced you to your
Yes.
now husband?
Yes. So him and his wife are the common link between me and my husband.
Oh gosh, I remember.
Yeah, his wife is best friends. So my sister-in-law is best friends with Scott's sister-in-law. It sounds really weird. It's not as weird as it sounds. It is totally separate. But yeah, my sister-in-law married my brother, and Scott's sister-in-law married to his brother, went to high school together. They're best friends. And they had kind of started chirping to each other that Scott and I should meet. And so I knew who he was. I knew who Scott was just because of that. So we met more organically than that, but I knew him because my brother Andrew and his wife had been saying, oh, you need to meet Scott and blah, blah, blah. But they never actually set it up. We ran into each other.
It's a very Omaha story.
Oh, totally. And it was in a bar. So
Yeah. Let's talk about holidays, because you've already mentioned your calendar is pretty full for the last 3 months of the year. Talk to us about what you're looking forward to for the holidays, what you've got planned for Cottage House Cookies, and if you have some tips, some cookie decorating tips. I'm sure our listeners would be all about incorporating those into their holiday baking. Well, listeners, just when you thought Margaret was going to give away her cookie baking tips for the holidays, I'm stepping in to end this episode here. You'll have to wait until episode 35 for part 2 of our conversation. She'll be sharing her cookie tips with you, as well as telling you a bit about her holiday plans and sharing her thoughts on friendship with you. Thank you so much for joining us, and I can't wait to have you back for episode 35.